Hi folks, Chris Tellion here of HomeTeamGameDev.com, but today talking about PlainMeditations.com, where again I'm doing a modernized, up-to-date, based on adaptation of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic text I find really helpful. And today's video has got to do with that in so much as wanting to share a major point from Stoicism that's really helpful towards our productivity. Someone might hear these videos, of course, especially as I'm doing these, rotating my topic, and between my self-command productivity audio and my home team game dev stuff, trying to figure out where or why am I talking about classical philosophy stuff in these videos. And where this came from me today was somebody, longtime friend and member of home team, asked me for some tips on productivity. We're trying to dig at how I'm doing so much more than some other people who would like to be doing some stuff. Where and why and how am I able to do those things? And one of the major tactics that came up is really something that I've built into the self-command material, but that Stoicism really where I got it from, and that is only concerning ourselves with the things that we're able to do something about. It's kind of a mouthful, and when we say it, it is, there's more to it than it sounds like there is. But only doing what we're able to do something about. And there's many different directions we can take this from, in terms of, I realized I could pull up some readings, passage this, that, that. I don't want this to be so much like a Bible study, where I'm like pulling up classic text, even my modernized version of it, and reading from it. So we're just going to talk today about a few examples of what that means, and how it can be helpful to us. The gist of it is, one of the things that separates Stoic thinking from what comes naturally to us, is realizing that worrying about stuff doesn't help the thing that we're worrying about. Being angry about something doesn't fix the thing that we're angry about. Being sad about something probably doesn't fix the thing we're sad about. And to some modest degree, if we listen to those impulses, it might help steer our action towards doing something about it. In the same kind of way as if I'm a little bit stressed, that might remind me to study. But the stress isn't going to help me study. And as I'm often quick also to justify about Stoicism, it's not like the modern lowercase s version where we are ignoring those feelings. We're preventing them from getting in our way. And one of the ways we do that is by focusing on what we can be doing anything about. That, let's say there's somebody who's wrong about something, and this comes up all the time on the internet, and I'm annoyed because I disagree with them. Now, a few things, right? One, I might be looking at, first of all, am I even sure that I'm right? Well, of course, we're all equally confident in ourselves. But then, really, it's unlikely that if they don't know who I am, if I'm not in a position of authority that they have to listen to, and they don't necessarily have any respect for me, any more than any other stranger on the internet, I'm not going to be able to change their opinion. Right? Who in your life can change your opinion? People who are very close to you, people you respect, people, like I say, in a position of authority, right? We mean broadly. I don't mean like the cops, but maybe. I mostly mean like your teachers, your parents, your minister, anybody who's in some sort of hierarchy of a position you trust, that you'll listen to, your coach, right? Your manager. Somebody who you can hear out. They might say, here's why I think you should do this differently, and you're probably going to hear them out. Anybody else? Right, if you're just out in a shopping store, and somebody just confronts you verbally, because they overheard a conversation, you're not changing your opinion because of what they said to you. And in fact, you're going to throw your walls up, and resist, and double down, and back off, and just anything to make the conversation stop. And so already, this rules out a bunch of what ties us up on the internet. There's a classic XKCD about, I can't go to bed because someone on the internet's still wrong. Among the things we can't do anything about is fixing other people's opinions, making them change their minds any more than they can make us change ours. And so that's a major part of doing what we can do something about and not worrying about the things that we are powerless to be able to effect change in. Another version of this, and this one's a little bit more extreme, is really that it's where the kind of core of that self-command productivity audio material is all about. It's that when I'm doing something, I need to focus on just that task as if it's the only thing that exists. And think of it this way, right? It's because while I'm doing it, I can do something about that. Let's say I've got 300 sound effects to work on. I'm working on a specific sound effect. While I'm working on that sound effect, I can change something about it. If I spend my time sitting in front of that sound effect open in my audio editing program, thinking about what I wish was different about the other 299 sounds, I can't make those changes right now because I'm working on this. You might use the same example here if we zoom out a bit, and zooming out is another technique the Stoics encourage, looking from a bird's eye view down, seeing ourselves as someone else might see us. But if we zoom out from there to an example that's, again, a modern example, so certainly not from the old text, because driving wasn't a thing. When you're driving in your car, you very much need to focus on the street you're on, the things happening around your automobile. Is there a ball bouncing across the street? Is the light in front of you changing from red to green? Is there a car pulling off the intersection of some kind of a driveway? You're focusing on the road in front of you, not every other road in the city, not every other road in the world. How much worse of a driver would you be if while you were at the wheel, you were thinking about roads in Idaho, streets in Iceland, I don't know, what traffic is like in the middle of Istanbul? Like, that's not going to get you very far. And there, of course, there's a safety reason why we're going 40 miles an hour and we don't want to die or kill anybody. But it's also important, even if not as immediately a mortality consideration, that what you're doing with your attention and your mind when you're sitting in your chair in front of a computer, or in front of your notebook, or in front of whatever it is you're doing, cooking, that if you can give your full attention to essentially the road in front of you, and not be distracting yourself by all the dishes you're not cooking, all the things you're not writing about, all the homework assignments you're not doing. Again, same thing, classic thinking back to school. I'm working on my physics homework right now, that I'm not simultaneously also trying to be solving things about my creative writing assignments, or not simultaneously trying to also figure out something about my programming assignment. I am dealing with a thing I can do something about, which means the thing I'm doing now. Which again is where the self-command audiobook stuff really ties it to the whiteboard. It's being clear about here's what I'm doing, and anything else right now I'm not thinking about. Now, my usual giant disclaimers around this stuff. That doesn't mean that the other things aren't important. That doesn't mean that you should never do anything about those things. It doesn't mean you should shell out the world and ignore it. What it means is that while you're doing that other thing, well, you're focused on the thing you're doing. When you come back up for air, essentially, I finished my lap, so get out of the pool. Okay, well now, I'm thinking about what action to take next, and one of our actions that we can assign ourselves to do is thinking about what is the right action to do next, and that's where part of that task involves assessing what's changed about my environment, what's changed about my priorities, what's changed about, for that matter, what I'm able to do. That there might be things which I'm able to do now because of my credentials or my age or some other change in circumstance around me that when I last thought about what to do, I was powerless to do anything about. Maybe increasingly it's like, well, you know what, I'm old enough to get involved in politics in a way I wasn't when I was younger. Or I'm old enough to build a platform in a way that wasn't last time these things concerned or stressed me out. And part of this too, what's nice about that is again this clarity of whatever it is that the battles I'm picking to fight on, I want to help improve programming education because I'm annoyed at the situation there, or I want to improve the clarity of people getting into game development who understand what they're getting themselves into and what it involves and entails, or wherever we pick our battles, those of course battles I pick, we can choose those, and because that's what we're doing, again, we free ourselves from feeling like at the same time being sad or angry or anxious over things that we aren't doing anything about, and therefore can't be doing anything about. Like we talked about the whiteboard the other day in the self-command video, this gives us this clarity of I'm doing what I'm doing, and that's all I can do, one thing at a time. When it comes back to time to figure out what tasks to do next, I can figure out, am I now better positioned because of this other work I did to do something else, which again is important, needs to be done, but I may not be in a position to be able to do more about it. And rather than squirm and stress and struggle about that, lets us be smarter about where we direct our energies. An example used by Marcus Aurelius in Meditations is that when an animal is bound up, it might push up against a barrier, it might pull against chains or other things, and as a vegan person, I don't love all this conversation, but that people are smarter about this stuff. That as human beings, if we come up to a barrier, we're not necessarily going to exert ourselves banging on the barrier because we can figure out I'm not going to be able to physically power my way through this. But that means we haven't actually wasted any energy yet. We haven't actually exerted our energy ineffectively until we spend it on what we can't do. That means we have the same amount of energy left to redirect to other uses, such as considering, is there some other way out of this cell, or whatever example we're thinking about. To use a game example, since of course I assume many of you share this interest as mine of playing some video games. When you're playing a game, there's gameplay sequences and there's cutscenes. Sometimes they overlap in IGCs or in-game cutscene stuff. We're not going to consider those in-game cinematics. When it's gameplay, you're concerned about the things you have to react to, the things you can do. I can jump, I can climb, I can dodge, I can reload, I can pick up items, I can decide where to go. So those are things your brain has to get tied up in doing. During cutscenes, one of the things that happens, right, narratively, they're trying to engage you and immerse you and your attention in such a way that you still feel like you care about what happens to that character. But let's get real. When you're not in control of the character, and the story's going to do whatever the story's going to do, that's a time when you can ease off. Your brain can go to rest. There's no stress in a cutscene. Because what's going to happen is going to happen. If your character gets captured, it's not because you did anything wrong. If your character loses in a fight, there's no way to have won the fight. You see what I mean? And there's a lot of things in life that hopefully aren't quite as separated as in-game action as opposed to cutscene, but there's things that will happen around us, to us, people in our lives, situations around us that are like a cutscene we have no controls over. Nothing we could have done could have changed it. And the stoic mentality is that if my character gets captured in a cutscene, I don't blame myself for that because there's nothing I could have done. We can do what we can do within the things we can do something about. That's where we give our attention to. And so long as I did the thing that I meant to do, and it was the right thing to have done, as best as I knew at the time, I'm satisfied with the outcome. And this includes, and this is part of, you'll occasionally probably heard echoes of this in my older YouTube content, this idea that, I was talking about this too with the same person, about being able to do things without being constantly ground up or pushed back by them. And there's a lot of things in Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, which plainmeditations.com is my modernized update I'm working on. Give an update here in a second on how the progress is coming. Coming along great. But one of the details in there too is about not wanting empty fame, not being concerned about what other people's opinions are, not doing it to impress other people, but to decide this is the right thing to do, and I'm going to do it as I consider the right way to do it, and then that is success. Whether that gets a bazillion views or one view in modern YouTube parlance as opposed to classic speech, it's not about fame for its own sake. It's not about attention for its own sake. It's not about even platform or status for its own sake. It's just about, did I do the right things from what I was able to do? And did I do them? And if I did, then I feel good about it. And then whatever else happened outside of that, other people's reactions aren't up to me. I don't control other people. Other people's responses aren't up to me. Now I can still learn from that. It might reinform and change what I do next in terms of what I decide is the right use of my time or energy, or how to best go about it in the way I feel is the right way to do it at that time. But it's very separate from the success of it is the fact that I did what I meant to do out of what I was able to do, and I did it. 100% success rate, 100% in my control, 0% up to outside factors. And it's another part of the stoicism and the idea of separating what we can do from what we can't, is never giving up our sense of success or doing the right thing or essentially happiness, in some sense of the word, to things that we can't affect, to things that are outside of us, to somebody else's opinion. That there's too many opportunities there for where you could do everything right and have the outside thing go wrong, and vice versa. You could do everything wrong, have the outside thing go right. And so we want to decouple those. We want to focus on, am I doing the right thing out of what I can control? And am I not getting stirred up overly to a point that it's tearing down what I can do by what we can't? It's a classic fortune cookie that sums us up fairly well, to not let what you can't do get in the way of what you can. And that particular fortune cookie was particularly memorable for me because I was on crutches for a few months from some surgery, I think in 2006. So particularly burned into my memory there. But anyway, a real quick update on how things are going with plainmeditations.com. The text itself is essentially done. I say essentially because so it's 12 books, essentially 12 chapters. That text is all now edited, been reviewed now by another person. Thank you, H. Trayford. And I'm now going through the recording. I've recorded the first third of the book. Currently going through and trimming that up. Got the introduction recorded and the overall audio fidelity, format, pacing, tone, etc. Thumbs up by a few people who reviewed it. Getting the first third of the book ready now to send out to some other internal review with home team folks. And that's something where mostly I'm holding off there on doing the other 2/3 in case feedback from that leads me to redo the first third and or inflex what I'll do with the remaining parts. But in the process of doing the recording, I am catching some little things about tweaks I want to make to the text to make it a little easier to follow. I'm going to catch a couple examples of where I can further clarify it. And so, not releasing the text yet. Text will be available when the audiobook version is. If you want to know when the text is available, plainmeditations.com. And again, it is something which is really just taking this classic Stoical text and modernizing it. I don't use hypermodern examples here like driving or video game cutscenes. That's more what I'll do here on YouTube. I mostly keep to examples that could conceivably have been mentioned in ancient Rome. I'm not talking about, like I say, automobiles and video games. But the language is completely accessible. The language is really just completely adapted, updated, made a little more easy to follow. So that's what plainmeditations.com is. You'll find out there when the text is available. Same list as what was Self-Command, which includes, if you get self-command.com, my productivity audio, that will include with it an update of this full audiobook when it's ready. And the text course, which is available free to everybody out there. And I guess one last note there, Home Team Game Dev, which my video will be about tomorrow, is something that does include Self-Command with it as part of membership, along with a whole bunch of other learning materials, textbooks I've written, video courses now used by a lot of folks, all included with that as well. But that's another way that, of course, my members are a part who I develop this material with, because it has practical impacts on our productivity, our ability to do the things we mean to do, our practice at learning things we want to learn, doing stuff we want to do, practicing what's within our control, not worrying about what isn't. That's it for the day. Thanks for being here. Catch you another day. Bye for now.